to Task and Finish Group Nighttime Economy, Wednesday, 29th of October. Members of the public wishing to listen and watch the meeting may attend in person in the council chamber. Live stream is offered as a discretionary service, and the user must accept that there may be unavoidable gaps in coverage due to unforeseen technical circumstances or difficulties. The meeting is open to the public, and anyone is welcome to attend. An induction loop facility is available for meetings held in the council chamber. Arrangements can be made for access to meetings for disabled people. If you would like us to arrange this for you, please call the contact officer shown above. Members of the public are entitled to take photographs, film, audio record and report on all public meetings in accordance with the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulation 2014. People may not, however, act in any way considered to be disruptive and may be asked to leave. Notice of these rights will be given verbally at the meeting as appropriate. The emergency evacuation procedure is as follows. From the committee room council chamber, turn left, follow the green emergency exit signs to the main hall entrance and proceed to the assembly point at St. George's Square. Angela, any apologies, please?
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Hanif, Councillor Latif, who's been subbed by Councillor Ahmed, and Councillor Begum.
Thank you. Can I please take us on to the minutes? The minutes are before you. I don't know if there are any questions. Maybe I could just go through very quickly, just page by page. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, and page 13, and finally page 14. Are there any matters arising? No. Can I sign off the minutes then as being acceptable? Yes. Thank you very much. I just need to remind everybody of the disclosures of interest. Members are reminded they must disclose both the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest and any personal interest that they may have any matter to be considered at the meeting, unless the interest is as in sensitive nature, in which event they may need not disclose the nature of the interest. A member with disclosable pecuniary interest must not further participate in any discussion of, vote on, or take any executive steps in relation to the item of business. A member with a personal interest which a member of the public with knowledge of the relevant facts would reasonably regard as so significant that it's likely to prejudice the member's judgment of the public interest must similarly not participate in any discussion of, vote on, or take any executive steps in relation to the item of business. Disclosable pecuniary interests and personal interests are defined in the Council's Code of Conduct for members and co-opted members. Prepares to report on any business which is considered to be urgent. Is there any?
None, Chair.
Thank you. So we have before you, it's been a long journey and we're almost at the end. It's a rather long agenda, but it's a long, but not actually short items. But the volume-wise, there's a lot of material there, which shows how much work has actually gone in into the discussions, into the reviews, into all aspects. And I must, first of all, I think, give my thanks to Angela Fraser for taking so much time and effort to put the agenda forward. Actually, there was an awful lot of work that was involved here, and it's really to be able to put it succinctly into the agenda is an excellent piece of work. I think it would be useful, and I don't intend to go through all of the original information that makes up the report, but I think it might just be useful just to very quickly just to discuss how we've got here. So where did we get all this information from? So if we go back really to the beginning, 12th of March, where at that time we received the initial evidence report into the nighttime economy. At that point, we had supporting reports. So there was a summary of nighttime economy data from the Luton Business Intelligence Unit. There was a nighttime economy purple flag KPI data. It was a self-assessment. There was a Luton Town Centre purple flag assessor and panel report. There was a nighttime economy report, a nighttime economy market monitor, and a nighttime economy market consumer research report. Also on the 12th of March, we had a summary of the Nighttime Industries Association Summit, which was actually an important summit, which was attended by myself, by Corrie, and also by Saffron from the licensing office. On the 12th of March, also, there was a stakeholder engagement and consultation plan. So that really was what we were going to look to try and get information from. And this included a plan for engagement with key stakeholders, business and residents, a co-option of key stakeholders. So we had Chris Marshall that kindly came to join us from the university, Julia Horseman, and of course, Michael Kill from the Nighttime Industries Association. There was a call for evidence submissions from key stakeholders and a draft consultation survey questions for residents and businesses. That was in Appendix B and C. On the 15th of May, we went further forward, and here we looked at the Town Centre Task Force 6 monthly report. We also received evidence submissions from stakeholders, so from the Nighttime Industries Association, from Luton Point. There was evidence submitted from Luton Bid, and also submission from the Culture Trust. And we as a group agreed to consider the evidence submissions from the stakeholders for inclusion in the final report. Also on the 15th of May, we also looked at the Town Centre Safety and Enforcement Plan, which was delivered by Tony Stefano and also by Vic Sangera, Community Policing Inspector. The Task and Finish group noted that report. We go forward then to the 26th of August, and here we had the Nighttime Economy Consultation feedback. We received 1,004 responses from members of the public, 9 responses from businesses in the nighttime economy, in-person events attended by myself, members of the Task and Finish group, and various officers. We had in-person events at the Library Theatre, the Point, the Hat Factory, Inspire, and with students at the University of Bedfordshire. The Task and Finish group agreed to consider the data provided in the report as part of the recommendations in the final report. On the 26th of August, we also received a new town centre delivery plan for Luton Borough Council, which was delivered by Sinead McNamara and Sarah Doherty. Members were able to consider and to comment on the report at that time. On the 26th of August, we also had a report from the Nighttime Economy business stakeholders through the session feedback. This was attended by Luton Bid, Michael Kill from the Nighttime Industries Association, the Castle, the Culture Trust, and council representatives. The Task and Finish Group agreed to take the session findings into consideration when producing the final report. Also on the 26th of August, there was a report on the visit to Leeds, which was conducted by myself, by Corey, Councillor Mahmoud Hussain, who's actually played quite a big role in all our proceedings. I would say my thanks to him for that, and by Angela Fraser. Members agreed to consider the report and the findings for inclusion in the final report and as part of recommendations. However, we also were not able to do many other visits. We tried, but it was very difficult. Maybe other authorities weren't so keen to release what they were doing to us. But we nevertheless were able to take online meetings with a number of individuals. So we had a Teams meeting with Carly Heath, who was the nighttime economy advisor from Bristol City Council, with Satu Stretfield of Publica on some of the work that they've done in the nighttime economies and lighting for other authorities, especially in London. We also met on Teams with Giulietta Pineo, Policy and Research Lead, Culture, Creative Industries and 24-hour London unit in the Greater London Authority to discuss work that they had done in London. And finally, we conducted a number of roundtable discussions on the 12th and the 16th of September. That was with the for cultural and community events, for marketing our nighttime economy, for the food, retail and leisure sector, and finally for safety. And that was with cultural, business, community leaders, council officers and councillors. So as you can see, there was a lot of data taken from a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, and that's led us to where we are today, which was, with your support, we will try to make the recommendations going forward that will lead into the final report that Angela Fraser will draft. So if I could please ask you to look at page 19. So you have before you a number of recommendations which we would like to ask you to consider, but we have to remember that this group this evening is for you as group members to make the final recommendations that go forward. So what we have here are a number of recommendations that have been put together with the background evidence underneath each recommendation. But individual members can also put forward recommendations. I, for example, after I went through all this data again during this week, have come up with 4 additional recommendations I'd like to put to members. But could I please firstly ask us to consider the various recommendations on page 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, 24. But I first would like to see if there are any questions or any comments to make. Please.
First of all, I thank you for your perseverance, because I think you really pushed it all the way through. Some of us did manage to attend some of the meetings. There was an enthusiasm to start with, but it seems to have died down a bit. And thanks to Angela, we even turned up at 10 o'clock at night to look at the night economy. So it's not often that we get, people from this, officers from this committee to come at 10 o'clock at night. So that, thank you very much to those officers, because officers did put a lot of time and effort into it. And before we go into each individual recommendation, I think one of the things that we need to realize that unless we do something really drastic in terms of making the town very viable and the town that is lively, it is really disappointing to see that after 10 o'clock, 98% of the venues were completely, hardly any customers at all. So I think, seeing other places and visiting Leeds has opened our eyes completely how place can be made vibrant by the local authority being a facilitator and leading on it. And this is what needs to be, and a bit more enthusiasm from our planners as well as our licensing people to make life a little bit more enthusiastic for the venues, even when they are opening just an hour extra at night with 10 and 11, and the licensing objecting to it, for goodness sake, it's a cafe. And how the hell this town can really be vibrant if we are not encouraging it to be? And I think in one of the recommendations we need to be making, perhaps on the end of it, is the cooperation of all parts of the council to be a one council and encourage the night economy as they did in the past.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Steve. It's just about the communication. Given that nearly half of residents don't use social media, what new communication methods will be introduced to make sure all communities are aware of and can take part in the town's night time activities?
Corey, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. I think in terms of what's covered in the report, I think it's clear that there's quite a lot of marketing goes out online. There's a huge amount covered in terms of that, and I think probably what we've discovered is that the biggest gap is around getting to people out in the community that are less online, less using digital forms of seeing what's happening in the town. But also those people that don't come into the town centre as much, how we reach those people out in the communities and the wards. So I think there's a couple of things. The main way in which I think we try to reach those people in terms of promoting what's happening in the town at the moment in the nighttime is, apart from social media, is with the Luton Life magazine. So I think there's something around kind of maximising the use of that. But I think in addition to that, I think one thing we've been talking about as part of the work that the Town Centre Task Force is doing is some more active update documents that we can give to members to give out in wards and surgeries, so that we're getting more messages out into the community that way. So I think it's probably a bit of a role for members to play in that, but I think it's about kind of us giving you the tools and the information that you need to go out and talk to your communities to let them know what's happening.
Thank you, Chair. I started to read this 250-page document and very well prepared and very well put together. So my thanks for everybody involved, officers and members, in what has been a pretty enormous task. And I hope to see, in the coming months and years, a lot of this coming to fruition. It's a comment really more than wanting to add to the recommendation. First-hand experience of dealing with residents in the last 6 weeks in our ward concerned about the complete level of misinformation about how safe our town centre is. So could some consideration be given on how we can combat that? We've had a recent talk up in Stopsey with other councillors there, with community police, and I would suggest 90% of all the people in that room still have this incorrect perception that our town centre is not a safe place to be. And on a personal level, I know it to be because we're out quite a lot, but could some thought given to on how that could be tackled? Yeah, I appreciate it won't happen overnight. Changing people's perceptions is a very difficult thing to do, but I think that will be key to having that part of the strategy. But no, thank you. It's been really, really interesting to be involved.
All right, do you have some comments on that?
I think just that is an ongoing challenge that we face. We're aware of that. That's a big focus that the Town Centre Task Force has. Quite a big part of that is the role that the police can play as well, in terms of not just the policing, but the engagement role that they play alongside us in terms of promoting all of the work that they're doing. I think anybody that's spent time in the town centre over this summer will have seen there is more presence of enforcement around, and getting that message out is really important, but it does take a bit of time. I think obviously pulling kind of all the levers in terms of all of our partners sharing that message, you know, the bid and other partners really kind of getting that message out. But the biggest challenge to overcome in terms of that is those people that won't come into the town centre in the first place to have a look for themselves and see what the change is like, and give that opportunity to change their own perception. So yeah, appreciate it's a really big challenge still, that, but I think we're seeing some positive impacts in terms of the additional enforcement that's gone in, and it's about then getting that message out and reinforcing that constantly.
Drag people into the town centre, lay some coaches on.
I mean, I think one of the recommendations which we will be coming to, which is on page 23, it is looking at ways in which we could try and make the place safer. We got a lot of inspiration from what they were doing in Leeds, which, although Leeds is a city, there were a number of things that we were able to take from that visit, and hopefully we can apply within Luton. So that is coming up, Councillor Marshall, on as part of that recommendation later in the agenda. So if we can come to the first recommendation, the first recommendation on page 19 is that the Nighttime Economy Task and Finish Group is recommended to consider and comment on the conclusions and recommendations set out below for inclusion in the draft final report. So you have the background to that underneath on page 19, and also on page 20 and top of 21. And that leads on to a sub recommendation, if you like, that which would fit into that overall recommendation, which is that better communication on marketing of the nighttime offer, and it needs to be improved to fully embrace the diversity in the town and that of different communities. The Luton bid, in partnership with the council, should support businesses in the nighttime economy to promote their events, to encourage a wider visitor participation. Do we have any views on that recommendation, please? Councillor Say?
Not really. I mean, I think that really is a starting point, to be honest with you, before we talk about other recommendation, and I would strongly support that.
Okay. So does that recommendation have the support of this group? Yes? Any objections? Thank you very much. The supporting evidence for that recommendation is found in any case within the report. It comes on, however, to recommendation 2. And part of that is really what we saw in part on our visit to Leeds. So the second recommendation is a greater use of St George's Square, Market Hill and the Hat District should take place to showcase events for International Culture Days, to celebrate diverse communities, and better use of pop-up markets and bars, in addition to events hosted in these spaces in the town. And secondly, that the council should look at the feasibility of offering a business rate reduction as a financial incentive to new and struggling businesses to encourage partners and external sponsors to invest in events. And I think that area is very important. It's something that Michael Kill has highlighted, the fact that that many businesses, many pubs, many music bars, they're shutting, and a large part of that is down, not just down to the change in culture and to the change away from alcohol consumption by a lot of the younger generation, but it's also down to the fact that there have been huge financial burdens placed on those businesses around the UK. So whatever we could do in the form of offering a business rate holiday, a business rate discount, especially to businesses that are willing to try new events and new offerings in the town, I think that would go a long way to help. Is there a, please, yeah.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. Basically, I think we should, council should seriously look into this business rate reduction because of the new, because of the current financial crisis. You see, small businesses are struggling. We can see raise of the national minimum wages and other inflation. So small business, they are really struggling. So in order to promote our Luton nighttime economy, we should encourage and welcome small business and give them an incentive at least 12 months or 18 months, business rate free scheme. This is, I think, council should seriously look into this one and try to implement as soon as possible. Thank you.
There would be the hope that this goes back to the executive, and if the executive approve, that Dev and his financial team would be able to look into that as a matter of urgency. I'm sure that we get the support of Councillor Taylor back there. The third recommendation is that. Sorry.
Do you want me to include in that small businesses as well? Is that what you
Yeah.
think?
Okay.
Do you want
So
small business added to that recommendation?
Yes, please. Small business as well, like retail shop.
I think it probably would be encompassed in, but
Struggling, when you say struggling businesses, does that encompass small businesses?
would that satisfy for struggling businesses? Yes.
Like we are talking about nighttime, but it will be helpful. We can include like whole package in all the businesses who are operating during the daytime as well.
Councillor Hussain, sir.
I would think, businesses that are struggling really hardly anything going in there. As far as, some of the businesses that are thriving, we're talking about the takeaways. Takeaways seem to have it doing very well. So in terms of that is a totally different thing.
Yes.
But in terms of some of the restaurants, as well as some of the bars and the other places we saw, hardly anybody in those premises. So that is an evidence enough for us if that Friday night, if the place is completely empty,
Yes.
you don't need Einstein to work that out,
Yes.
do you?
Yes.
That they are struggling. And I'm not too sure. I commented on the night that I'm not too sure how they're surviving.
Recommendation
As it is.
as it stands. Yes. Okay. Thank you. The third part of that recommendation is a better and regular co-working relationship between Luton Bid, the council, Luton Point, Pub Watch, and the Cultural Trust to enable more activities to take place and encourage greater footfall. I'm wondering whether we should include the university as one of the members of that.
Yeah.
Yes. So does that meet with the group's approval? That full recommendation? Corey, sorry.
Yeah, just one suggestion on this recommendation would be, I think Pub Watch's role is much more focused around safety. So I wonder if that perhaps could come out and it could just be pubs and venues we include as part of this, just to cover all of those town centre pubs and venues as part of this.
Okay. Yeah, everybody happy with that? Thank you. So we're moving on to the safety that Councillor Marshall talked about earlier. So that leads on to the next sub-recommendation, which is that the council and police look into providing visible policing nets, so the enforcement teams in the town centre after 10 p.m. and look to adopt some of the measures in place at Leeds, such as the Walk Safe app, street marshals or return of the street pastors, an SOS bus to provide assurance to residents and visitors that the town centre is safe to visit at night. Does that meet approval, Councillor Hussain?
That's one of the things that we did see in practice in Leeds, where there were, visible policing as well as these things that are mentioned in there, particularly for the females, to reassure them that they are safe in the town centre.
Yes.
Right, where they set up a particular line, if there is any problem, that they can call this. So I think that would be very important. It is, safety really, there is a perception the town is not safe, even though we walked around it after 10 and we didn't feel any, in fear in any shape or form, but it is what the public thinks of it. So I think we need to have a visible policing, and the council need to look at this antisocial behaviour teams, that they finish at 9 or 10, yet, the life does go on. So we need to look at that, how we can extend that to at least midnight.
Anything on that? Because obviously you were part of that visit to Leeds, where we've taken quite a lot of that inspiration for the recommendation.
Yeah, I think there were some good examples. I think I'm aware that some of these elements we've had similar things in the past, or we've got, for example, we do have an app at the moment which doesn't seem to be working, and I think that's a better example. So I think there's multiple ways in which we could look to take this recommendation forward. So I think it's one for a little bit further exploration on how we put some of these things in place. But I think all are potential to go ahead.
Approval from the group, please. Yes. And it leads then to the fourth of the sub-recommendations. And that is that the parking in the town centre to be improved, and for lost cost or free parking in council-owned car parks be introduced during nighttime economy hours to act as an incentive to residents and visitors. I think there's a £1.
Yes. That one there.
Sorry?
That.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, there's the recommendation, sorry, on item 32. The council and police to look into providing visible nets in the town centre after 10 p.m. and to adopt some of the measures in place at Leeds, such as Walk Safe app, street marshals and SOS bus, to provide assurance to residents and visitors that the town centre is safe to visit at night. And then we go on to say that the council and Luton Bid work with businesses to improve lighting in the town centre. And I think that's an important area that's come up in a number of our discussions as well, with Bristol and with the providers in London. So maybe improvement on lighting on shop frontages, and to look further at Wellington Street and Chapel Street under pedestrianisation, to create a cafe-style culture by widening the pavements. And what we saw in Leeds was where they had taken over some side streets that came off of the main squares. These were they were just had one or two perhaps pubs in them. They were very scruffy, and they've done a complete turnaround by pedestrianising, and now they have become some of the most successful areas in Leeds for the nighttime economy. There is a feeling, I know, that that probably at least part of Chapel Street could be pedestrianised. There's a view that's coming back, I think, from Lewis Cadet, that maybe something could be done in Wellington Street, maybe not totally pedestrianising it, but maybe increasing the pavement sides to allow the businesses to move out onto the pavements. I think that's still being looked at the moment. But views, members, views on further pedestrianisation, Councillor Sain?
To what we're talking about Leeds is some of the derelict area of the town, which really were so bad that people wouldn't even walk down them during the day. Now they were very vibrant. Once they closed the street, done a better lighting, it was a cafe culture that was really created, you know, bars and cafes, and that was a mix. What we've got in Market Square, you know, like Mano Cafe there and some of the others, similar thing could be extended to the side streets, and the back of the town hall can also be better lit, because when you come in from the station or that part of the town, it's not very safe for anybody to walk at late night. So if people are coming in from out of town, you know, sort of into the railway station and bus station, need to be lit up far better than it is, because that, to my mind, is very important when people are coming in, if they're coming to this part of the town. So I think that needs to be done. It's not just those two streets, it's also that bit as well.
Councillor Nichols, I know that you have a wide knowledge of Leeds.
That I do, but that was not what I was going to comment on. Sorry, when you say pedestrianising them, do you mean pedestrianising them 24/7, or are you talking about like just at in the evening, like say you might have a low traffic neighbourhood? I personally don't think pedestrianising is possibly the best idea, and that whole recommendation needs to be proofread.
I think the idea was to look at some full pedestrianisation of some of the side roads, and it's worked well, not just in Leeds but in some other parts of Bristol as well. It may well be that Chapel Street, you couldn't do the whole of Chapel Street because of the traffic systems that comes and the bus that comes through. Wellington Street, again, I know there's been an issue with taxis, because I think the taxis use part of it, but there could be a way of actually making the road itself narrower, so as to stop cars parking down there, and to widen the pavements to allow the businesses to spill out onto the pavements if they wish to.
It's already a red route and it's already pretty narrow, personally, but yeah. It definitely needs lighting improved though.
Is it wouldn't just be those two roads we talked about, but the idea of pedestrianisation, further pedestrianisation, to encourage a kind of outdoor cafe culture, more of a European style culture, would actually add a lot to the town. So is there agreement on this recommendation?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah. Okay.
I mean, can I just give you?
Yeah, please. Sorry.
For instance, you know, when you come from the Castle Street,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be closed.
Yeah.
We haven't got any barriers. Nighttime, cars are running through all the way down to the Park Square, and it becomes, you know, that it's totally ludicrous when we created a pedestrianised area, yet there's nothing to stop people in the evening. They don't do it too often. You know, sometimes they come up, you know, by the Red Lion, by the pub, and just turn round into the actual, you know, Market Square. So I think that needs to be taken into. If you want public to be safe, then you need to make the obstruction. I'm not talking about managed roads that really are important for goods, but those that we have already done. We have spent a lot of money, investment in that. And if we're not really, and even here down the back of the town hall, right? When you're coming up Gordon Street, you got the middle of the damn thing. And the kids at night time, you know, when they hire these expensive cars, they're going right around the town hall. Well, what is the point of it all when you spend, you know, tens of thousands of pounds and you're not even obstructing? There is no reason for that bit to be open, right? It's not a thorough road. It's not a bus route. So why aren't we doing that? So that's what I'm talking about. If you want safety of public, if you want people to be sitting out there and, you know, in
Do you want to
George's
add
Square,
anything into
then
this?
you need to make it safer for the public.
Yes. So is that something you would like to add into this recommendation? Can you give a form of words for Angela?
Yep, asking that the obstruction, you know, like we've done here for deliveries, those bollards come down, those can be put in there so that if there is a delivery to any of these stores in the front, then they can come in and at night time or early morning, and the bollards come down just the same as they do in the man one. That's what I'm suggesting.
Do you got? You want to read that last part of that recommendation back?
So what's it, does that follow through from
Yeah.
where it says widening of the pavements? And also obstruction? Putting in obstructions to stop deliveries.
I'm talking about the same, just here, as well as Market Square at the end of where the Red Lion and the castle is. Obstruction there, so they can't drive towards the Market Square. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, yeah. Underneath some bullards, so delivery can come in, but only when the camera's low, the bullards come down.
Where's the?
Square by the castle and the Red Lion, just that entrance, so the vehicles should not be able to come forward towards the Market Square or anywhere else. And the same is around the back of the tunnel, at the corner of Gordon Street, and you know, just the back of this building tunnel. Yeah, no problem.
Here is that the parking in the town centre be improved and for lost cost of free parking in council-owned car parks to be introduced during nighttime economy hours to act as an incentive to residents and visitors. I know we already have something in place, which is £1, Corey, I think, at the moment. Is that for parking?
I think that was just over the summer period, so I think that's ended now. But we trialled that over the summer period, yes.
And other bus companies, I think it should say other bus companies, to extend the late night bus routes beyond the 12 midnight cut-off deadline. I think we've already asked Steve Lane to look at that in part. So does that meet, sorry, Councillor Nichols.
Sorry, what is lost cost or is it a typo?
It should be low cost.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
lost.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
Can they? Can they?
After 6, do you know, Corey? No. Okay. So does that meet with the groups? Now, does anybody, oh, sorry, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to make a comment on point number 38 about extended bus timetable. Because in the town in here after 6:30 there are not many buses operate. I think I think we need to encourage or we need to ask Ariba if they can extend at least bus timetable till like late night. That will help the local people to commute to town center, because most of the buses they don't operate after 6:30 or 7 o'clock. Not sure because how we council will convince, because council should give some sort of incentive to the Ariba bus to extend their bus timetable. That will help people to visit to the town center at the evening time. So council should work with the public transport department. Thank you.
Councillor Marshall?
Thank you, Chair. I think the bus thing's a bit chicken and egg, isn't it, really? Because you need something to draw people into the town centre for them to want to use the buses. Are we going to drag people into Are we going to encourage people to come into the town centre because we are asking the bus companies only to charge £1 per trip or something in the evening? So I don't think the answer would be just solely sitting with the bus companies to extend their late night bus routes. I would suggest something like a trial period, probably not in the winter, would probably be the best way of doing that. But you need something for people to want to come to the town centre, don't you? And if we just went to Reviva and asked them to, I don't know how practical it is to say, can we lay on some late night buses? I would bet £1 to a penny, especially in the winter months. It wouldn't be feasible. Just a thought.
Do you want to add something to the recommendation then?
I think it would need to be a trial. It needs to be a trial at a pertinent time. Whether more people get dragged in for Christmas events, I honestly don't know. I'm not an expert on the buses, but maybe a trial period in consultation with Ariva as to see what the impact would be, because obviously it's a cost implication for them and the council, isn't it? Does that answer your question, Chair? That's not really a recommendation, is it? Just a thought, Steve.
Do you agree with that, Councillor Lampier? Did you get? Okay, I have. So let me just ask first. Do any of the group members have any further recommendations that they would like to make? You've had all the data, extensive amount of data. I have 4 recommendations which I would like us to consider based on my thorough rereading of all of the data again. Do we have those to hand?
Just another quick thought. Maybe it's a comment or a recommendation, but if these recommendations are ultimately adopted, what's going to be the unit of measurement to see how successful these things are?
For all of the recommendations?
Well, the ones which are adopted, I can't guarantee that every single one will be adopted, but for the ones that are adopted, is there anything in this document to look at a measure of success?
So we need to have maybe a further recommendation that we look at that we measure the success of the recommendations.
What you normally do after you've agreed your final report to go on to the executive, and the executive has considered the recommendations. If they choose to adopt all of them, then we should have regular updates coming back to, it'll probably be OSB, on those recommendations and the outcomes and what's happened. So you should have regular updates on those.
So I think you have the 4 recommendations that I've proposed in front of you. just open for discussion. The first one is that the council should look to create data-driven policy making and create a Luton data hub. I mean, we may be able to use Akita's new data group that she has, but to create a Luton data hub to track economic trends and consumer behaviours and successes. Now, that was something that was a strong recommendation from Michael Kill, that we look to see what is happening. And we use that as data going forward to help us when we know that we are successful, or we know what we need to do to get further success. Furthermore, that it should conduct regular impact assessments to refine policy making strategies and help provide clear action plans for the short, medium and long term. I don't know, does that have any sympathy? Councillor Nichols.
Sorry, I was a bit confused by point 1 because we already have a data hub. So why do we need to make another one?
No, it's what to use the, well, in a sense to make use of the data hub then.
Yeah. So are you actually proposing adding town centre based economic trend data to the data hub we already have?
Yeah.
Because I would prefer a recommendation that said that, reflecting that we already do have a data hub, because I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel.
No, that's fine. So
that's fine. And I was a little bit confused by the impact assessments bit, because surely you can only really do an impact assessment on something you're proposing to do. What are you proposing to regularly do impact assessments of if we're not constantly changing policy? Because surely you're only doing an impact assessment of something that's a proposal, rather than just, I'm not really sure what the aim there is personally.
well,
Decision we're going to make anyway.
I mean, if you wish, we could say that we should look to refine policy making strategies and provide clear action plans for the short, medium and long term, and to remove the context of the impact assessments, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine, because whatever decision we make, we always do impact assessments. So I wasn't really sure what that point was.
So that means then that we would be changing that the council should create data-driven policy making via the Luton Data Hub to track economic trends and consumer behaviours and successes. I think you were saying.
That's fine. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, but does that meet with approval? Yes. Okay. The second one is and this came from the Culture Trust, in fact, as in part of one of their responses. They said that they find various aspects of trying to book spaces and the whole booking system itself. So I put there needs to be an urgent review of the licensing, the booking process and cost of booking spaces for events. Cultural and community organisers find the present system a barrier to organising events. And I think, Corey, and I think there's some work already underway in that regard.
Yes, Chair. So there is a review of the overall sort of booking process that licensing are undertaking at the moment. It's a fairly live and organic process that I think be fair to say gets reviewed fairly regularly anyway. And we, I think the licensing team tried to adapt to where people find the process challenging. In terms of the fees aspect of it, that comes through the sort of budget setting process in usual order as part of the budget setting that happens early in the year, ahead of the next financial year. It might just be useful to add perhaps a little bit more detail into this recommendation, if there's anything specific that members want to be taken into account in terms of the real barriers that are being faced by groups as part of that review that's happening at the moment.
Councillor Hussain?
In light of recently, you know, that event that was organized by Castle and other people, which really was, even though there was hesitation on the part of the licensing who were not keen, and neither was the police,
Yes.
because they want a very easy life. Nobody in the town centre doesn't need to get the police involved with anything. So I think in that the terms, it would be, you know, encourage it, as I said right at the beginning, unless we are encouraging the night economy, it's not going to automatically
Yes.
make it so bureaucratic and difficult for people to hold the events, and without really testing the ground. Just saying, I mean, that event, I was there, Jammed, yourself, and Gerard and all the other, and it was very successful, right? It, you know, there was hardly any disturbance. I didn't see any for the times I was there, and James were probably there most of the night, and it was real success. And that's what we need to encourage.
Yes.
This is what we saw on Leeds regular events most of the times, that they, you know, the council is the major organizer in that, where they put the barriers around with a very affordable tickets, and groups can play live in the town centre, you know, quite a few times. So I think that can happen here if we are, you know, the licensing and other agencies and the police are, you know, making it, facilitating it. So I would say that really is what they're talking about.
Did you get?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so on that basis, are people happy with that second recommendation? The third one, and I think that's come up, Corey, from various community groups in the past, and the fact that in some ways that the point blocks off the different parts of the of our community nightlife centres. The council needs to improve navigation through the town at night. As a priority, a lighting and walking strategy around the town centre is needed for visible and safe navigation. This would help join the different nighttime districts of the town centre. The council should evaluate solutions provided by other authorities with similar issues. Councillor Marshall.
Can I add to that in terms of walking, but two-wheeled strategy as well? Because we have a very vibrant nighttime takeaway economy in the town centre, and just purely anecdotally, as I walk from Crawley Road car park to here this evening on a very cold and wet, not cold, but cold, wet, damp October evening, I counted 18 vehicles in some manner, shape or form related to the takeaway food economy. So could we look at having an area that these people use to navigate up and down George Street around the town and not pose a potential threat to pedestrians? Like, so an example, if you go to Amsterdam or whatever, there are cycleways and ways for two-wheeled motorised or non-motorised transport to use. I think that would be beneficial, because just walking and lighting is part of the problem. The two-wheeled situation, and again, I'm feeding back from residents I speak to quite regularly, is another barrier for them to come into the town centre, because they are literally, it's like Blade Runner for those who can remember that. But could we have something in there about the two-wheeled economies, please, as well, or the two-wheeled transport, call it what you like?
Can I just check? I think in the town centre strategy, there is I believe that there were plans to look at rerouting the national cycle highway. So it was going around Church Street and then Silver Street in that direction, actually taking it away from the town centre. Am I correct? or-
There were plans to take it away from George Street. I'm not sure the latest update on when that's likely to happen, but that is planned. But I think it might be worth flagging still as part of the recommendation that the cycle element is important to consider as well as part of that safety element in that strategy.
I mean, I don't want to discourage, and there are some legalities around the use of these machines or what have you, and I don't want to discourage or have an impact in terms of the businesses that benefit from them, but I really, that is quite an important part for me and the residents that I represent. Thank you.
Okay, so we can add, so we'll add that to.
How you define
recommendation.
two-wheeled strategy or what, I don't know, motorised or
No, no.
cycles or whatever.
With that addition, is the group happy with that addition? Okay, the final one was, there is a need to look at making Luton's nighttime programmes and events more sustainable. And that came across as a major piece of the work that was in the Nighttime Industries Association. And it's been a number of authorities around the country have worked together with nighttime industries to see what could be done. So in that sense, it's can the council provide support to venues drawing up action plans to empower venues to be more sustainable in areas such as waste management, water usage, green certification, and carbon literary training. Views?
I have no problem with that.
All I would say around that is I'm aware that our climate change team does work with businesses, provide some of those elements already. I'm not sure of the appetite that venues have had to engage in that so far, but I'm sure it's something that the climate change team could take forward and explore whether there's appetite and interest from nighttime venues and pubs and businesses to engage with opportunities like that.
So you think it's a fair one to put in? Did the group agree? Yes. Okay, in which case, can I please take us back to the original recommendation, which was at the end, National Nighttime Industry Task and Finish Groups recommended to consider and comment on the conclusions or recommendations set out below for inclusion into the draft final report. So can we add those recommendations into the final? Sorry.
Just a thought. I wonder if in that bit about bikes and also sort of safety, if we can put in something, getting Beds Police to do more about the illegal motorised bikes that do all the Just Eat and deliveries and etc. But how you word that is up to you. Just a thought. Well, they're illegal. Stopping them from coming in, but also like enforcing them because they're not legal. I don't think the council's got powers to enforce it. That's why I said Beds Police. Yeah.
Then, please. As I've said, so can we now take that recommendation and include the each of those sub recommendations to go forward into the final report? Yeah. And I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for your hard work over the various meetings across the year, for your participation. And we look forward to the next meeting, the final meeting, is it to look at the final draft document that will go to
Executive.
to the executive. That will be in November, I believe.
No, the next meeting of this committee to receive the draft final report will be the 27th of November. it'll be too late for that to go on to the 1st of December executive. So it'll have to go to the 5th of January executive for them to consider.
Okay,
27th of November, yeah.
so James, do those recommendations meet your, what you're trying to achieve as well?
Broadly in line with what I expected, yeah. I mean, I know there aren't many direct levers we have, but I think we pull the ones we can and influence and control where we can as well. So yeah, interesting document. Thank you everyone for their hard work. Just look at implementation now.
Okay. Yep.